Well, the worst lake effect snow of the season could fall just in time for the holiday, with the worst of it, possible on Thanksgiving Day. Talking about several inches of snow, possibly up to a foot in some spots. You throw in some gusty winds, it's going to be a tough event for us. This energy continues to track over portions of the northern tier as we go into Thanksgiving, moves up and over the northern Great Lakes. It's that wraparound wind passing up overhead. It's really going to give us some impressive snowfall totals potentially, especially downwind of Lake Erie, Lake Ontario, and Lake Superior. Some of those snow bands that set up could give us potentially up to a foot of fresh snow with wind gusts up to 45 miles per hour. That would be a major concern for some whiteout conditions. It would be tough to see. Look at Grand Rapids, Michigan. You're looking at not only some snow, but gusty winds. Cold air right behind it in place does mean a lot of the snow will stay in place as well. Tomorrow, Syracuse starts the day at 59. The cold front passes through. We drop and get the snow coming in on Friday, and we stay with those cold air alerts in place. Wind chill, rather, is going to be really something to watch closely here. Winter storm watches have already been placed. This is going to be for tomorrow evening, Wednesday evening, takes us all the way into Saturday morning, and a lot of this happening all the way between, say, tomorrow and Friday. This is when we could see several inches of fresh snow with some of those favorable snow bands. Could get double fetch, and those snow totals could easily add up to a foot. You can see where we just talked about those alerts off of Lake Erie and Ontario, and I do want to highlight places like Marquette. The UP of Michigan is where we could see a foot plus of snow. And then you talk about northern Michigan, watching them and looking at their discussions this morning, talking about some good bands setting up here as well. Here we go with the timing. You have a quick switch over from rain to snow. This is 11 o'clock Wednesday morning. With the low tracking to the northeast, the winds continue to whip across Lake Superior. Here you've got a bit of a double fetch for Lake Huron and over to Lake Ontario and Erie, and that will add up some of those snowfall totals as well. Some of those bands with those winds whipping could carry some of that isolated snow, just very light, all the way to the Hudson Valley, perhaps some flakes to New York. And then you also have the gusty winds that are going to be in place. Look at this. We'll end with this here. 2 to 3 feet of fresh snow by the time we get to Friday for places like Marquette, Michigan.
So we've got a big lake effect snow event coming, but I'm sure a lot of folks, if you don't already know, they want to know what's the big difference between lake effect snow and just a typical area of low pressure that will trigger a snowstorm. Lake effect snow is driven by the cold, dry air moving over a warmer body of water, that is the Great Lakes. So let's get into some of the dynamics of lake effect snow. Now, typically this happens in the early winter, late fall, because you still have warm water over the Great Lakes. Once the Great Lakes start to ice over, then the moisture can't evaporate anymore. So basically it will shut off a lake effect snow season. But you need to have cold air above the surface. It actually has to be at least 23 degrees worth of a difference between the warm air of the surface and 5,000 feet aloft. It's the temperature disparity that creates the instability and allows the air to then rise. Now, what's happening is all of that moisture from the Great Lakes is then turned into thunderstorms as it heads into the upper atmosphere. And then eventually with the colder air aloft, it turns into a big time snow event. Now, the longer the wind stays over the lake, means the more moisture it can capitalize on, and therefore the heavier the snow that can be on the return side when it finally jumps over onto land. And so that's where we can see very intense bands that start to set up worth of lake effect snow. Now, these bands are very narrow. If you have a lake effect snow band that sets up overhead, you can maybe go 5 minutes down the road, north or south of you, and they're not seeing anything. And that's why sometimes when you look at these events, Craig, it can be a little bit tricky because Buffalo had a huge lake effect snow event, but the main recording site in Buffalo, nothing. It
was like nothing.
Right. So the event as a whole for Buffalo went down as, 7 inches, but
meantime, people digging out are like, wait, what do you mean?
Exactly. So those are the different components of lake effect snow, but we are in the thick of that season, right into November, December, January, another big year, but then notice once you get into February, the lakes start to freeze over, lake effect begins to shut off, but just an early sign of more lake effect snow events to come.
Here we go.
Sure.